Imagine driving 2,000 miles with a diploma half-earned, $50 in your pocket, and a single thought echoing through the cassette deck. What if I never try? That's how William Bradley Pitt, strict Baptist choir kid, future vampire, tank commander, and accidental sex symbol threw everything into a beat-up Datsun and aimed it straight at Hollywood. Before the red carpets, before the broken teeth and upside-down vampire rigs, there was only a chicken suit, a rent bill, and a hunger bigger than Missouri skies. Press play and watch how that reckless detour turned into one of the wildest ascents in modern cinema. William Bradley Pitt is born beneath an Oklahoma frost in December 1963. Yet the landscape that truly chisels him is a later move to Springfield, Missouri. His father steers trucking routes, his mother counsels grade school kids, and both expect their 3 children to honor strict Baptist rhythms. Sunday hymns first, fried chicken only after the prayer. Restrictions braid every day. No cards, no cursing, no questions that start with why not. But even as a choir boy, Brad learns to slip through small loopholes. He joins golf so he can escape chores, picks up tennis to dodge early curfews, dives into swim meets because chlorine hours rank higher than scripture study. Nothing, however, sparks like the school auditorium. The first time stage lights hit painted flats of a Kickapoo High production, applause tumbles over him warmer than Missouri, July, and louder than any sermon. Amen. He keeps hammering scenery, memorizing monologues, and turning locker room gossip into improv drill. Senior year ends with a stack of sports ribbons and a secret vow. The real game isn't on a field but behind a camera he can almost smell. College seems the sensible pit stop. He declares journalism and advertising at the University of Missouri. But Hollywood's hum grows louder than campus bells. 2 weeks before commencement he packs a dented Datsun with cassettes, a half-zipped duffel and a clipped headshot, then drives west until Pacific Air tastes of salt and promise. Los Angeles greets him with overdue rent envelopes and smog sunsets. Daylight becomes survival choreography. He hauls refrigerators up walk-up stairs, chauffeurs strippers to bachelor parties in a scratched limousine, even sweats inside a feathered chicken suit waving El Polo Loco coupons at unmoved traffic. Nights belong to Roy London's acting studio, a cramped second-floor room, where failure is mandatory homework and honesty is the only passing grade. One Tuesday he nails a bruised monologue and the room erupts. That roar replaces every hymnal he ever sang. Tiny roles arrive like all too short lifelines. He stands silent behind Charlie Sheen in a diner, utters 3 words to a soap opera regular, crunches a Pringles chip in a 1989 commercial and smiles sunnier than the San Fernando sky. Television grants scattered flashes. Dallas, Growing Pains, 21 Jump Street. Just enough for groceries, never enough for comfort. He craves flight, not float. Flight seems imminent when Yugoslavia calls for the low-budget feature The Dark Side of the Sun. Brad plays a young man whose skin ignites on contact with daylight, shooting under Balkan skies until Civil War shutters production and locks the negatives away for a decade. He returns to Los Angeles broke, unseen but steadied. Now he understands exactly how far he is willing to crawl for the dream. Indie comedy Happy Together and slasher Cutting Class follow, each paying rent and teaching grit. Then a casting rumor spreads. Ridley Scott needs a heart-stealing drifter named JD for Thelma and Louise. Brad's audition grin crackles. 3 motel room scenes later he wakes up branded a sex symbol before he has even furnished an apartment. Agents push generic romances. He swerves with rockabilly vanity project Johnny Suede lets him balance an impossible pompadour. Half-animated noir, Cool World turns reality cartoonish. Both bombs satisfy his rule that curiosity matters more than certainty. Validation at last comes from Montana River. Unsatisfied with his first tape for Robert Redford's A River Runs Through It, Brad shoots a second audition after midnight beneath a bare bulb, catching Paul McLean's reckless glow. Redford sees promise beyond cheekbones and casts him as the gambler with fly rod grip. Premiere night critics note he has found gravity to match glamour, and the young man who once painted high school flats realizes California might just feel like home. Sunset Strip billboards now blind him with his own Levi-wide grin. Yet Brad still drives a dented Jeep Cherokee that smells like cold coffee and screenplays. The phone rings with what seems like destiny. Neil Jordan's interview with the vampire. Velvet coats, candle smoke and London fog sound glamorous, until 6 straight months of night shoots turn dusk into dawn. Wigs squeeze like tourniquets, and gold contact lenses scrape his eyes raw. He hangs upside down daily so blood fills temple veins, framing the tragic vampire Louis. Anne Rice publicly declares the casting hopeless. Studios threaten a $40 million exit fee, and Pitt begs to escape. He stays, counting bruises as tuition. Premiere weekend lines curl around city blocks. Critics quarrel, audiences swoon, and Brad pockets a lesson misery can mint stardom. Almost before the vampire dust settles, Robert Redford invites him back to Montana Rivers for Legends of the Fall. Tristan Ludlow roars against war, winter, and destiny. Brad guts a bison heart on camera, braids horse sweat into tangled hair, and earns a first Golden Globe nomination. His face now wallpapers college dorms, but he is done obeying romance typecasts. David Fincher offers the antidote, say 7. Endless artificial rain soaks a nameless city while Brad, as Detective Mills, chases sin incarnate. During a rooftop pursuit he slips, punches through a windshield and slices a tendon. The real cast becomes narrative cast, wrapping his hand in script necessity. Studio chiefs insist on a sanitized ending. Fincher and Pitt refuse to yield, preserving the head-in-a-box darkness that will shock 1995 audiences and push global grosses beyond $300 million. The next plunge is Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys. To capture Jeffrey Gonian's unhinged energy, Brad quits cigarettes, letting withdrawal tremors power manic monologues. He studies psychiatric wards, practices hand flutters in motel mirrors, then detonates on screen, winning a Golden Globe and Oscar nomination. People magazine crowns him sexiest man alive. Yet on set he feels like a hurricane in thrift store layers, unsure where the eye of calm resides. Off-camera life mirrors the whirlwind. Romance with Juliette Lewis burns out. Months later, Gwyneth Paltrow enters during 7 rehearsals, Quicksilver's smile answering his ragged nerves. They become America's golden couple, sharing red carpets and quiet Sunday breakfasts, until paparazzi camp on their doorstep. 1997 tests glamour's armor. Yacht telephoto lenses steal nude images, splashing them across tabloids. The Devil's Own limps through endless rewrites and on-set tension with Harrison Ford. Worse, shooting 7 years in Tibet invites political blowback. Chinese authorities condemn the film and ban Brad, director Jean-Jacques Annou, and co-star David Thewlis from entering China. He retreats to Miraval's stone terraces, tasting young rosé and wondering whether any border can hold ambition still. Restlessness returns with Martin Brest's Meet Joe Black. 3 slow romantic hours let Brad study quiet benevolence as death in human form, opposite Anthony Hopkins's weary patriarch. Critics yawn, yet global box office soars, partly fueled by Star Wars trailer seeker. Between press junkets he meets Jennifer Aniston again, and practically floats through award season with her laughter echoing over flashbulbs. July 2000 they marry on a Malibu bluff lit by 50,000 blooms and fireworks that stain the Pacific violet. The budget tops $1 million, though guests recall the ceremony felt as relaxed as a backyard barbecue. While tabloids praise the fairy tale wedding, Brad hunts for sharper edges. Enter Tyler Durden. Fincher arrives with warm beer and Fight Club pages. Brad chips a front tooth, trains bare knuckle and sculpts his body to wire-tight muscle. He asks dentist not to repair the chipped enamel until wrap, claiming beauty needs a bruise. The studio despises everything: soap made from liposuction fat, IKEA smashed apartments, nihilist manifesto. Theatrical receipts sputter, executives lose jobs, but DVDs resurrect the film as disaffected scripture. Chuck Palahniuk, author of the novel, admits the adaptation surpasses his own vision. After such intensity, Brad begs for disguise. Guy Ritchie's Snatch hands him Mickey O'Neill, an Irish traveler boxer, whose rapid brogue confounds even subtitles. He attends dialect drills, then intentionally mangles every consonant, delivering lines crew members cannot translate until playback. Audiences laugh, critics cheer, and Brad delights in being incomprehensible yet magnetic. The 1990s slam shut with paradox. He is a global sex symbol, a cult anti-hero, a Golden Globe darling, and banned from the world's most populous nation. Every triumph has cost a layer of certainty, yet curiosity remains untouched, still steering the Cherokee down night highways lit by nothing but hazard lights and the promise of another impossible role waiting just beyond the next sunrise. Marriage seems to promise calm, yet Brad greets the 2000s by roaring through Los Angeles inside a borrowed gorilla suit for Jackass. He vaults hedges beside prank legends, disappears behind fake fur, and reminds himself laughter is lighter than any red carpet flash. Laughter keeps echoing in Friends when he barges into Monica's apartment on Thanksgiving, delivers icy barbs to Aniston's Rachel, and fuels a live studio audience earthquake. That same season he and Jennifer stage their Malibu wedding, 50,000 flowers, 4 live bands, fireworks staining the ocean violet, and sneak away before dawn in denim and sand-filled dress shoes. Work refuses to slow for honeymoon. Gore Verbinski's The Mexican casts Brad as Jerry, a bumbling courier who loses a cursed pistol, and Julia Roberts in the same sun-bleached afternoon. Critics squabble, but dessert screw-ups feel like breathing space after vampires and serial killers. Breathing lasts exactly one press tour. Tony Scott drags him into Beirut flashbacks for Spy Game, pairing him again with Robert Redford. Rooftop escapes crack an ankle, yet Brad finishes takes before accepting ice packs. Crew whispers calling him stubborn as concrete. Then Steven Soderbergh's Ocean's 11 hands him Rusty Ryan, Danny Ocean's forever eating right hand. Burgers, nachos, shrimp cocktail. Rusty snacks through every mastermind moment because Brad says, a proper thief never schedules dinner. The gag thread sequels as smoothly as Sinatra once threaded Tuxedo Silk. By film 3, the franchise has charmed nearly $1 billion from pockets worldwide. Between casino sets, he records a cameo for Soderbergh's meta-indie Full Frontal and pops up in George Clooney's Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, planting Easter egg grins only sharp-eyed viewers spot. But restless hearts hunt. Wolfgang Peterson lures him with Achilles, 6 months of Doan sword drills, protein calculations and early morning swims. Mid-shoot, the tendon named for the hero snaps in ironic protest, halting cameras until Brad hobbles back to finish his bronze-styled destiny. Troy pockets $500 million globally even as historians debate sandals and shields. Jennifer dreams of children, Brad dreams of surprise. Surprise materializes as Jane Smith. Mr. and Mrs. Smith pairs him with Angelina Jolie, live ammunition training, and stunt team pyrotechnics. They shoot competition each other, bruise shoulders, spin knives centimeters from skin, and swap banter that crackles louder offset than on. Paparazzi watch first kisses bloom in trailer shadows. Tabloids forge Brangelina headlines while Aniston's marriage shudders under public microscope. January 2005, the Golden couple release separate statements, amicable language that cannot soften echoing heartbreak. Chaos becomes routine noise. Jolie and Pitt adopt Maddox from Cambodia, Zahara from Ethiopia. Biological daughter Shiloh arrives in 2000. Reporters chronicle every passport stamp while Brad slips Plan B paperwork onto studio desks. The company's founding promise stories Studios Fear yields Alejandro González Iñárritu's Brad, eyes swollen red, begs Moroccan villagers for a helicopter while distant radio static measures marital fragility. Audiences witness an actor who can bury magazine glamour beneath dust and grief. Andrew Dominik's slow burn western The Assassination of Jesse James branches further from blockbuster comfort. Brad's Jesse whispers paranoia across candlelit rooms, stalks snowy train tracks, and wins the Venice Volpe Cup even as box office totals whimper. He doesn't flinch. Artistry sometimes rides lone rails. Coen brothers yank him opposite direction. Jim Bro Chad Feldheimer in Burn After Ridding, peroxide hair bopping to iPod beats. Chad's foolish bravado ends with a closet door gunshot that merges comedy and horror in one squeal. Brad relishes how viewers gasp, then laugh, then mourn before credits roll. 2 rolls later he becomes Benjamin Button under David Fincher's relentless camera. 5-hour makeup rituals age him backward while Cate Blanchett dances forward. The film hypnotizes mainstream crowds and awards voters alike. He barely blinks before Tarantino drags him into 1944 as Aldo Rain, carving swastikas into Nazi skulls and pronouncing Buongiorno like TNT, with a Tennessee fuse. Inglourious Bastards premieres at Cannes, where Brad, mustache twitching, tells journalists his scalps are Nazi season ticket. Off-screen, Chateau Miraval's limestone terraces start to feel like sanctuary. The newly blended family settles among olives and wet clay. Brad crushes grapes barefoot with Zahara, learns lullabies in Khmer from Maddox, sketches weapon silhouettes for Pax's bedtime question. Headlines chase them across continents, yet Vineyard Sunrise offers one promise. Vines care nothing for scandal, only for steady hands. The decade winds toward its close with Brad occupying new parallel identities. Tabloid revolutionary, adoptive father wine grower, indie producer, blockbuster magnate peroxide goofball, all spinning around a center that refuses to through each swirl he holds a single stubborn compass. If the role doesn't scare him, if the story doesn't stretch him, he will keep walking until one does. A decade changes and Brad tries hiding in a cartoon booth. DreamWorks needs a glowing jaw for Mega Man, so he slips on headphones and becomes Metro Man, the satin-voiced hero who strums a white-hot guitar before faking his own death. Animation frees him from cameras, but freedom lasts only until Terrence Malick summons him to East Texas memory country. The Tree of Life is less film than prayer. Malick tears up script pages, whispers, "Walk like regret," and circles actors with a Steadicam as dawn burns pink. Brad plays a father who can cradle or crush with the same keyless hand, echoing strict Sundays back in Missouri. Cannes presents the Palme d'Or. Some viewers walk out, others weep. Yet Brad learns dividing a room can be holier than pleasing it. He swaps whispered mysticism for fluorescent dugouts in Moneyball. Billy Bean believes numbers beat gut feelings. Brad chews sunflower seeds, slams phones and turns baseball algebra into oxygen. Awards flock, Oscar nod, Globe nod, but he treasures a quieter victory. Proof that heartbeats hide inside spreadsheets if an actor listens close. Darkness beckons next. Andrew Dominic's Killing Them Softly stalks recession-era streets where small-time thieves rob a mob card game, and Brad's hitman Jackie Cogan restores brutal balance. Cigarette smoke curls around angsty political speeches. Box office shrugs, yet Cogan's final monologue lands like hammer on glass, and Brad files another note. Cynicism wears best when cut to the bone. Cynicism turns to chaos on World War Z. The project begins as a quiet global thriller, but rewrites eat schedules, reshoots devour budget, and a Hungarian police raid on prop warehouses reveals 85 undeclared live weapons. Studio panic grows, tabloids predict disaster. Brad stays calm, flying from Glasgow rain to Malta heat, sprinting through Seoul airport halls as digital zombies pour over barricades. In the end, the film recoups every extra dollar, topping $500 million worldwide, and headlines pivot from Troubled Shoot to Pitt's biggest hit. During promotional gaps, he records Happy Feet 2, voicing philosophical krill named Will, who questions the universe while dodging whales. It feels symbolic. Even in tentpole storms, his curiosity remains microscopic and hungry, floating at the bottom of Hollywood's food chain asking why. Curiosity follows him home to Chateau Miraval, where he and Angelina crush grapes barefoot, label rosé and chase 6 children across limestone terraces. Paparazzi angles can't pierce the stone walls, but Brad worries success might. He starts Plan B meetings under Provençal shade, hunting script studios' fear. One title keeps surfacing, 12 Years a Slave. He signs to produce, and for a single week. Before that gamble though, there's another. Pitt returns to neon Los Angeles for David Fincher's aging epic, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. 5-hour makeup sessions age him backward from wrinkled newborn to sunlit youth. Digital teams map wrinkle patterns like starch. Audiences embrace the time-bending romance. Awards pile, yet Brad files a tougher note. Patience on a cold prosthetics chair can be as fierce as any sword drill. Between roles, he watches the world tilt. Financial markets crash. Headlines shout foreclosures and scripts about card game stick-ups feel suddenly prophetic. He leans into fatherhood, learning lullabies in Khmer and Amharic, timing vineyard pumpovers between homework sessions. Interviews ask how fame fits diapers. He answers perfection never does, so he trades it for presence. Presence faces its sternest test on a night flight from LAX to London when turbulence rattles a sleeping Zahara away. Brad distracts her describing an imaginary monster he'll fight in the next movie. By landing, she's giggling. Weeks later, he signs to fight cinematic monsters for real in Mark Forster's rewrite of the zombie epic's final act. Post-production of World War Z finally locks and premiere spotlights return. Reporters remind him the budget ballooned. He reminds them the audience screamed. Box office tallies confirm the win. At home, Vivienne learns to ride a bike. Brad jogs beside her, cheering louder than any can ovation. Night falls and vineyard breezes carry lavender through open windows. He opens laptop files titled Jesse James Notes, Bastard's Dialect, Za reshoots and wonders how many lives one lifetime can contain. Answering that wonder, Steve McQueen's email arrives. Financing is secure, Louisiana sets are ready. Can Brad still play the Canadian carpenter who believes in freedom? He smiles at the simplicity of the role. No prosthetics, no box office weight, just moral backbone, and replies yes. The carpenter's hammer will strike next, but today he lets the vineyard sleep and whispers goodnight to a household stitched together from 4 continents, knowing tomorrow another script, another incarnation will ask him to tear comfort apart, so Discovery can walk in. They say every outlaw story needs a carpenter's nail, and Brad finds his in the hot Louisiana air of 12 Years a Slave. He appears for a handful of minutes as Samuel Bass, a Canadian who speaks freedom into chained ears, then steps aside while Chiwetel Ejiofor Solomon carries the weight. Yet Plan B funds the whole agonizing journey. When the film lifts the Best Picture Oscar, Brad stands behind the cast, hands folded, proof that a cameo backed by conviction can outweigh hours of screen time. Conviction doesn't slow restlessness. Ridley Scott beckons with Neon Cartel Nightmare, The Counselor. Brad slips into cowboy hat and whispers slick warnings, bragging about Bolito Garrots, and risks true price. Reviews slash the script. Audiences murmur over Cameron Diaz on a windshield. Brad nods, pockets the lesson that not every bet pays cash, some pay an experience. Experience shifts to diesel and mud inside David Ayer's W.I. Brinder Fury. 5 men, 1 Sherman tank, German fields chewed to sludge. Brad beds down in the turret, calls the steel shell home, nearly punches Scott Eastwood when the younger actor spits tobacco on their floor. Shia LaBeouf yanks out a tooth for realism. Brad settles for bruises and a leathery calm that seems carved from tank armor. When the work wraps, he hugs the vehicle goodbye, feeling it rumble in memory like a second heart. Home life rumbles too. Angelina opens by the sea, a slow Malta dream of a marriage on the verge. She writes, directs, stars. Brad plays the cigarette-clouded husband across hotel corridors thick with silence. They hope art will bleach tension from real walls. Critics pass. The tension doesn't. They retreat to Chateau Miraval. Try wrapping wounds in vineyard light. Bottle rosé that tastes of white peach and uneasy truce. Art keeps throwing curveballs. Adam McKay delivers a script that turns Wall Street jargon into bullet comedy. As Ben Rickard in The Big Short, Brad grows a prophet's beard, slams margarine on toast, and lectures rookie investors about food shortages, while betting against housing markets. The film takes adapted screenplay at the Oscars. Plan B's trophy shelf bows under new gold. Robert Zemeckis offers Casablanca glamour in Allied. Brad's Canadian spy romances Marion Cotillard's resistance assassin under Vichy chandeliers. Yet rumors of offset chemistry brew hotter than on-screen intrigue, stirring tabloids and whispering into Jolie's trust. Pressure mounts like North African heat. September 2016, the cracks split wide on a private jet bound for LA. Alcohol argument. Turbulence of another sort. 5 days later, Jolie files for divorce. Cites irreconcilable differences. FBI and Child Services investigate. Clear, but the spotlight burns white. Brad enters AA, stacks meetings like sandbags, sculpts clay busts in his Los Feliz studio while paparazzi lens reflections in the windows. Netflix throws a rope. War Machine casts him as Glenn McMahon, a jaw-jutting spoof of Afghan strategy sessions. He squares shoulders, twists vowels, lets satire deflect personal headline. 1 year later, he appears as Deadpool 2's Vanisher for a blink and zap gag, paid in a single cup of coffee, reminding Hollywood that self-mockery still sparks. Amid turmoil, he volunteers in Watts, loading produce boxes into car trunks. Bystander phones record sweat-streaked t-shirts and a quiet carrots up top won't bruise. Social media debates sincerity. Spinach keeps moving. Through each swing the vineyard wait. Miraval rows glow salmon at dawn, and Brad walks between them barefoot, listening to lavender bees, whispering promises to vines that neither awards nor lawsuits can influence. The man who once chipped a tooth for Tyler now counts sober days instead of abs, learning that some victories arrive not with applause but with a silent sunrise and the steady breath to greet it. Recovery begins on a Hollywood rooftop. Quentin Tarantino hands Brad a script drenched in 1969 neon. Invites him to become Cliff Booth, stuntman with a war scar and a pit bull named Brandy. Shooting feels like time travel. Fake smog, real muscle cars. A flamethrower cameo that melts away court paperwork pounding his phone. One afternoon, Cliff climbs a roof to fix an antenna. Brad peels off shirt and tee in one motion, sun catching every healed bruise. When Once Upon a Time in Hollywood debuts at Cannes, that casual undress triggers the loudest mid-scene cheer of the festival. Reviewers hail Pitt at peace. The season ends with an Oscar, his first for acting, and a speech directed to 6 children watching at home. He hardly sets the trophy down before donning a spacesuit for James Gray's Ad Astra. Roy McBride's pulse never tops 50. But inside that helmet, Brad lets grief flicker like radio static, searching the solar system for a father who vanished into darkness. The quiet, controlled performance arrives the same year as Cliff's carefree swagger, proof he can swing from desert laugh to cosmic ache without pausing for air. A planet-wide shutdown follows. Masks, curfews, empty freeways. Brad steps away from sets and into service. At Watts Community Corps, he stacks 50-pound produce boxes into minivans under April sun, sweat darkening a plain t-shirt. A passerby films 10 seconds. The clip spreads faster than any movie trailer. Asked why he's there, he shrugs. Moving crates keeps the head clear. Cameras restart in 2021 on a Dominican jungle set where Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum dodge kidnappers. Brad drops in for 8 comic minutes as Jack Trainer, flowing hair, zen calm, exit via grenade. Audiences howl, cameo done. David Leitch follows with a bigger invitation. Ride a neon bullet train across Tokyo while spouting therapy quotes and dodging samurai swords. Brad accepts, studies fight choreography until muscle memory sings, and insists on wearing a bucket hat that late-night hosts immediately parody. For the Berlin premiere he pairs linen kilt with combat boots, telling reporters, "We're all heading to the same dirt, might as well be breezy." Fashion blogs label the look druidcore. Ticket sales climb. Homefront turbulence refuses to fade. Angelina sells her Miraval share to a spirits conglomerate. Lawsuits fly across Atlantic cables. Depositions stack, yet vineyard rows keep ripening. Brad walks limestone terraces at dawn, sampling fruit, noting strawberry saline, hint of lawsuit before the cellar team pumps juice into chilled steel. Wine critics later award 90+ scores, proving vines ignore subpoenas. Creative pressure seeks new vent hole. September 2022 The Sarah Hilden Art Museum in Finland unveils 9 Brad sculptures, lead-filled plaster torsos, silicone revolver turning into a wilted bloom, a cabin riddled with arrows, yet still standing. Critics call them raw apologies cast in metal. Brad says only, "There are moments when trust broke." Every piece sells. Proceeds route to pediatric trauma clinics in Marseille. Long days still end in Los Feliz clay dust. He presses small hearts for each child, initials and sober year numbers stamped before firing. At year 7 Zahara ices a sheet cake that reads "Progress not perfection." Brad keeps the Day coin in a pocket beside chisel scars from 7's windshield mishap, talisman of pain repurposed. Meanwhile a new obsession revs engine. For Joseph Kosinski's Formula One drama, Brad trains at Silverstone, helmet radio linked to Lewis Hamilton. Engineers strap 6K cameras onto a black and gold prototype. Brad pilots through cops, wide eyes behind visor. A sensor glitch wobbles the tail he corrects. Pits and jokes that it felt like catching a sneeze at 180. Fans brand the car Brad 55. Hashtags trend before lunch. Plan B momentum never stop. The company backs scripts about newsroom courage, Mennonite survival and Amy Winehouse blues. Women Talking wins an adapted screenplay Oscar. Brad applauds from balcony seats, then slips into the night before camera flashes find him. Back in Watts, forklifts need drivers again. Brad returns without announcement, loads carrots on top so they won't bruise, jokes with volunteers, vanishes before reporters arrive. Fame consumed in its own spotlight still feeds quiet corners when carried carefully. One evening in Provence, grapeskins floating in moonlit vats, he rereads an old Roy London note, fail spectacularly. The world is a better audience for courage than caution. Tomorrow might bring more court filings, another stunt rig or a kiln waiting to be cracked open. But dawn will smell of crushed berries and lavender, and Curiosity, his oldest co-star, will be first on set. Summer rehearsal laps at Silverstone fade. Brad ships the bucket hat back to wardrobe and pivots straight into midnight Manhattan, filming John Watts's thriller Wolves beside George Clooney. The pair stalk rain-slick alleys in matching charcoal coats, trading murmured jokes between takes. Clooney calling him Mario, Brad answering Luigi. Inside narrow restaurant kitchens they rehearse a one-shot knife scramble that leaves potholders smoking and prop plates shattered. The stunt team applauds when both leads exit uncut, sweat shining like chrome. Whenever cameras power down he slips away to his Los Feliz studio, spinning low wide vessels from raw clay. Each new pot carries a stamped number, his sober day count. The wheels hum drowns residual sirens from the city streets. Glaze experiments bloom into ocean swirl blues, desert dust pinks, lava speck blacks. A month later 9 finished pieces travel to Helsinki as part of the Shadow Reliquaries addendum show. Brad appears via video greeting, cheeks flecked with dry clay, thanking Finnish visitors for letting damaged things shine. Court hearings regarding Chateau Miraval drone onward in Paris and Los Angeles. Lawyers fire briefs yet grape clusters ignore subpoenas, turning sunrise sugars to dusk acidity. Brad flies to Provence for the August Verizon check, tasting berries with the cellar master while reading deposition notices on his phone. He jokes the vintage might pick up hints of lawyer sweat, then returns to Los Angeles to read bedtime comics. Amulet for Pax by speakerphone, Bone for Knox over Zoom. Plan B keeps its pledge to risky story. Alejandro Inarritu's desert grief and babble once proved audiences will follow anguish if truth lights the path. Now Sarah Pauli's Women Talking furthers that mission. Brad attends the premiere quietly, seats behind technicians, and leaves before end credits houselights catch his profile. Weeks later the Oscar for adapted screenplay lands in Pauli's hands. Brad watches the telecast from a Watts produce warehouse breakroom, crates stacked like stadium bleachers, cheering with volunteers. That warehouse remains his favorite unadvertised stage. On scorching Saturdays he steers forklifts, positions pallets of oranges, reminds newer helpers carrots up top won't bruise. A teen recognizes him, stammers, asks if movie stardom feels different than volunteer sweat. Brad wipes forearm across brow, smiles, replies, Same story, hit your mark, lift your partner, don't forget water. September moves toward bullet train speed again. David Leitch schedules pickup shots for bullet train marketing spots. Brad straps into wires on a Burbank soundstage, flips backward through shoji panels, and lands grinning. Outside the stage door, paparazzi lenses wait. Yet he pauses only to offer a take care before driving a mud-spattered truck back to Watts for late-day shifts. Family rhythms braid through every set call. Maddox sends fermentation notes from Seoul. Zahara forwards Spillman debate results. Shiloh texts a rough cut of her UCLA parkour short, asking for music thoughts. Brad, knee-deep in clay slurry, types back drum loop links and proud of you heart emojis. Evenings end with Vivienne practicing French vocabulary through Chateau time zone lag. Laughter crackling like distant fireplaces. Construction bins in Paradise, California, on Atlas Grove, the modular cross-laminated timber neighborhood Brad funds alongside architect Shigeru. Groundbreaking day, he swings a wooden mallet at the first beam. Reporters 50 feet back, children of fire-displaced families holding seedling sapling. He tells local radio wood burned here, wood will heal here, then refuses further interview, handing the mic to a resident father describing how insulation smells like cedar instead of smoke. Fall drags fresh turbulence, another batch of Miraval motions, another magazine headline dissecting bullet train box office, another misquoted remark about linen skirts. He centers himself by molding a new series, tiny clay hearts pressed flat, so visitors can pocket them. Each bears a single stamped word, grow. He leaves a basket of the hearts in the Watts lobby. By evening only crumbs of bisque dust remain. December returns, bringing the rooftop memory full circle. On a quiet afternoon he revisits that once upon a time in Hollywood set. Now dusty and half-struck, climbs the same wooden ladder and stands where Cliff Booth once watched Los Angeles burn gold. He breathes smog-filtered light, flexes healed shoulders, releases an exhale that sounds almost like laughter. Tomorrow he'll memorize espionage dialogue, argue vineyard contracts and tighten F1 harness straps. But this instant belongs to a man who has learned that reinvention isn't escape. It's gardening, cutting back old branches so new shoots see the sun. Media One executives fly into Los Angeles on a dry November breeze, stepping into Plan B's backlot bungalow like vintners inspecting a cellar. Brad greets them in scuffed boots, pours coffee into recycled wine glasses, and signs papers that shift 60% of his company to Paris, but leave creative veto in his pocket. The payday splashes across Variety, yet he funnels much of it into blueprints for cross-laminated timber homes near burned-out Paradise, California. Money, he tells a friend, is healthiest when it's building walls other people sleep behind. Papers inked, he drives to Watts for the Friday produce loadout. Forklift forks squeal. Oranges tumble. Volunteers stare as the man from movie posters stacks squash in sunbled vans, reminding rookies, carrots go on top. Nobody wants bruised carrot. Someone's phone captures 10 seconds. The clip circles socials by midnight. Brad shrugs when asked. Sweat keeps the mind quiet. Early spring 2023, he's back in Britain wearing a flame print helmet, sliding into the black and gold prototype that will race fictional APX GP through Joseph Kosinski's Formula One epic. Lewis Hamilton radios breakpoints. Cameras as long as rifles bolt to carbon fiber, and Brad punches out laps through frosty Silverstone dawn light. A rear sensor hiccups. Tail swings, he catches it, Pitts laughs that it felt like sneezing at 180. Fans dub the car Brad 55, print banners for real season Grand Prix, where filming piggybacks between practice sessions. Strike sirens interrupt the engines. On 2 May, writers walk by, July actors join. Location trailers shudder, union placards bloom. Brad pickets outside Paramount, marker ink bleeding onto knuckles, chanting for streaming-era residuals. Filming halts worldwide, yet costlier silence hangs over crews paid by the week. Brad wires health insurance top-ups to the furloughed Silverstone staff and spends shutdown mornings at his clay wheel. Evenings reading depositions in the Miraval lawsuit that now circles French and Californian courts like WASP. Angelina's spirits conglomerate sale of her chateau share stings harder each hearing. Lawyers argue breach, countersue over trademarks while vines keep climbing trellis wire. In Provence, Brad tastes ripening berries via Zoom, naming flavors for the cellar master. Wild strawberry, hint, saline. Lawsuits on the finish. The 2023 rosé later lands 90-plus scores, a reminder that fruit ignores subpoenas. August ends the strike standoff. Cameras whir back to life. Brad rejoins Silverstone pit crew, skin 2 shades paler from months indoors. Between takes he FaceTimes Zahara, now a Spellman Jr. interning at the Carter Center, and Shiloh, whose UCLA short film edits on laptop speakers. He offers drum loop links, blows a kiss, tugs the visor down, and rolls back onto track. Autumn drops him into neon Osaka sets for final bullet train pickups. Knife flash, suitcase smash, Comedic timing retightened like katana steel. Berlin premiere looms. He pairs a rough-woven skirt with combat boots, telling reporters, "We're all headed to the same dirt, might as well get some breeze." Fashion feeds erupt, but by sunrise he's barefoot on Marival limestone, checking cap punch pressures, ignoring headline echo. September shipments dispatch 9 translucent resin torsos, shadow reliquaries to Helsinki's Amos Rex. Copper veins splice bullet paths across phantom ribs. Gallery placards note proceeds funnel to UNICEF trauma program. Brad appears only by recorded greeting, cheeks specked with dried glaze, promising broken can still glow. Pieces sell before the recording finishes. Thanksgiving pits hush against glamour. He forks turkey on a Watts fold-out table. Champagne flutes swapped for stainless water jugs. Children scattered across time zones FaceTiming. Maddox grad studies in Seoul raises a can of convenience store macchioli. Pax screens a new print textured with Oaxacan dye. Twins Knox and Vivienne compete to list French adjectives describing Vineyard du. Brad writes each in a notebook margin, meant for Marival legal strategy. Deciding language is an easier harvest than grapes. Winter 2024 sends him racing again, this time on Spanish asphalt. Before the Grand Prix lights ignite, FIA grants APXGP a demo lap. Grandstands chant. Brad clocks a hand-timed 150 flat, roughly Formula 2 pace, climbs out laughing. That's enough to sell ticket angles. Real drivers can relax. 6 million streams hit F1's channel overnight. Back in Los Angeles, he re-enters the edit bay for John Watts' Wolf. He and Clooney watch a knife fight, one shot trimmed to heartbeat silence. Brad suggests a half-second hang on falling silverware. Watts nods, clicks, and the scene locks. Outside, ocean fog seeps inland. Brad remembers Missouri humidity, chicken suit shifts. Every no-line cameo that taught him stillness can slice louder than dialogue. The year tilts into 2025 while lawsuits, barrels, storyboards, and clay hearts crowd his calendar. Yet each dawn he repeats the steady mantra first learned in a dusty Kickapoo auditorium. Curiosity over fear, movement over pose, story over spotlight. Grapevines rustle, unanimous agreement, and the visor-shadowed face inside a prototype cockpit grins like it has known this rhythm all along. Oscars polished. Brad steps away from spotlights and into Los Angeles alleyways, still echoing lockdown silence. 2020's pandemic shutters film sets, yet hunger lines lengthen. He chooses crates over cameras, volunteering at Watts Community Corps. In faded flannel and ball-cap disguise he lifts 50-pound produce boxes, until forearms throb, telling new helpers, "Carrots on top, no bruises." A passerby films 10 seconds, the clip rockets through phones quicker than any trailer. Reporters ask for comment. He grins behind a disposable mask and keeps stacking lettuce. Months later, sunlight filters through Dominican palms on the set of The Lost City. Sandra Bullock needs a last-minute savior, and Brad, hair flowing in slow-motion wigs, crashes into frame as Jack Trainer Zen Commando. Perfect jawline, grenade trigger exit. 8 minutes. Explosive laugh. Kurt, the cameo reminds audiences he can still detonate charm and vanish before credits. The real return roars along neon rails inside David Leitch's bullet train. Brad signs on as Ladybug, a weary hitman hunting inner peace while deflecting shuriken and therapy jokes. Training resumes, fist blocks down narrow aisles, suitcase swings denting aluminium walls. He insists on a bucket hat, quoting self-help mantras between takes. Crew members nickname him Zen Terminator. Film wrapped, he strides the Berlin premiere carpet in rough-spun linen skirt and combat boots, explaining to baffled fashion reporters, "We're all headed for the same dirt, may as well breathe." Social feeds ignite. Skirts sell out by midnight. Off-screen turbulence matches choreography. Angelina's 2021 decision to sell her Marival stake to a vodka conglomerate detonates years of vineyard partnership. Court filings volley across oceans. Headlines sneer. War of the Rosé. Brad files countersuits, yet harvest cannot pause. Grapes ripen indifferent to subpoenas. He samples juice with the cellar master, noting wild strawberries saline, and a hint of lawsuit. Critics later score the bottle in the mid-90s, proof that terroir ignores tabloids. Amid legal crossfire he finds a quieter studio, a Tampere, Finland museum, where 9 sculptures lead-filled torsos, bullet tunnels cast in plaster, cabin pierced by arrows stand under Nordic light. Partnered with artist Thomas Houseago and musician Nick Cave, Brad calls the exhibit Moments Where Trust Broke. Finnish critics label the pieces raw and unguarded. Every work sells opening week. Profits routed to pediatric trauma clinics in Marseille. He skips after-party champagne, boards a red-eye to resume stunt driving lessons. Those lessons happen at Silverstone, where director Joseph Kosinski readies an untitled Formula One epic for Apple. Engineers bolt 6K cameras to a black and gold prototype. Lewis Hamilton radios breaking point. Brad helmet fogging pushes through Cup's corner. Sensor glitch yanking the tail. He corrects, coasts back to pit lane laughing at felt like catching a sneeze at 180. Fans dub the car Brad 55. Hashtags trend before the visor lifts. Home remains Los Feliz clay dust. He sculpts ceramic hearts, one per child, stamping each with sober year numbers before firing. 7-year cake appears, iced by Zahara with progress perfection, and Day a coin slips into his pocket beside chip-tooth gravel from Fight Club. Instead of champagne, he toasts with sparkling water and a quiet smile. Plan B momentum rolls on. Premiering Sarah Pauli's Women Talking and supporting filmmakers wary studios ignore. At award shows Brad stays balcony back. Applauds loudly, exits before spotlight finds his seat. Press asks why, he quotes his acting teacher Roy London. Fails spectacularly. Failing now means bruises that heal into stories. Volunteer forklifts, linen kilt headlines, copper vein sculptures, contested grape rows all orbit a single stubborn compass. Curiosity beats fear. As summer heat shakes olives in Marival groves, he walks limestone terraces at dawn, hearing children's laughter echo off barrels. Tasting future vintages and unripened berries. Lawsuits will resume, stunt rigs will call, but Dawn's gift is identical to the one that drove a Missouri boy west in a rattling Datsun. A new page still blank, still vast, still begging to be filled with motion. Oscar still warm from Cliff Booth swagger. Brad carries it through airport metal detectors wrapped in a sock, tells TSA it's just a heavy bookmark, then sets it on the kitchen shelf next to a chipped clay pot one of the twins molded in kindergarten. Stardom and Fingerpaint finally share the same ledge. That spring he shoots past billboards into near silence, locking himself inside James Gray's hermetic Ad Astra helmet, whispering Father Quest lines while stuntmen bang moon buggies against craters outside the soundstage. Reviewers later marvel that Cliff's sunny confidence and Roy McBride's cosmic loneliness could orbit the same performer without collision. But Brad knows collisions are inevitable. He's spent decades steering through them. One such impact arrives with a pathogen no headline can romanticize. Sets close, red carpets vanish, premieres move to living room laptops, and suddenly Brad Pitt, global idol, is just a tall man in a denim mask, loading 50-pound produce boxes into minivans behind a Watts warehouse. A teenager filming on her phone whispers, "Is that?" The rumor spreads online before the last crate is stacked. Brad shrugs at the fuss. Sweat and sunrise feel closer to truth than flashbulbs ever did. When cameras restart, he refuses gradual cameo in The Lost City. 8 minutes of flowing hair, calm rescues, grenade exit, then straight into neon mayhem aboard David Leitch's bullet train where mindfulness mantras meet flying knives. Training bruises fade, the linen skirt Berlin premiere storm passes. What lingers is the bucket hat that becomes a meme of self-deprecating zen. Home life keeps rewriting its script. Chateau Miraval, once wedding backdrop, turns into courtroom stage when Angelina sells her share to a liquor giant. Legal filings pile like spent grape skins. Lawyers argue breach, but vines continue their silent syllabus: bud, bloom, berry, barrel. Brad tastes the vintage and jokes to the cellar master. Notes of strawberry, lavender and litigation. Critics later pour glasses and taste none of the bitterness. Terroir, it seems, is immune to heartbreak. Plan B advances its quiet revolution, pulling small, fierce stories to the surface just as Brad once hauled restaurant dish buckets for rent. 12 Years a Slave lifts the Best Picture trophy. The Big Short turns mortgage jargon into popcorn crunch. Women Talking transforms barn loft testimony into universal hymn. He appears on stage only long enough to hand credit to the storytellers, then slips into the wings like he once did in high school set crew. In private daylight he sculpts lead-filled torsos in arrow-pierced cabins, calling them shadow reliquaries. Outlets for trust turned fragmentary. Exhibitions sell out, proceeds fund pediatric trauma wards. Interviews ask if sculpture replaces acting. He answers that acting is just sculpture in oxygen. Both carve space for truth. Children grow like vines. Maddox debates policy at Yonsei. Zahara challenges professors at Spelman. Pax photographs Oaxacan dye pits. Shiloh edits parkour shorts in UCLA labs. The twins chase French nouns through Miraval lavender rows. Brad stamps small clay hearts with each child's initials, mails them across oceans wrapped in vineyard tissue. On the day he receives his 7-year sobriety medallion, Zahara ices a cake reading Progress Perfection. He thinks the equation is the best logline he's ever seen. Evenings sometimes find him on the same Los Feliz roof, where, years earlier, Cliff Booth fixed an antenna with his shirt off and rewrote the mythology of aging leading men. Now Brad stands clothed, coffee in hand, city lights wavering like distant campfire. He recalls Kickapoo High's plywood flats, El Polo Loco's feathered mascot suit, vampire harness migraines, windshield tendons, carved swastikas, marble hallways packed with flashbulbs, diaper bags, legal folders, forklift pallets and moon buggy roll cages. All those rolls, real and scripted, merge into one long take, scratches visible, audience still leaning forward. The world will throw new headlines, maybe awards, maybe lawsuits, maybe another chicken suit, but Dawn will still find him barefoot among barrels asking the juice how it feels, or bent over a potter's wheel spinning sorrow into shape, or listening while a director half his age pitches a film nobody else will finance. Curiosity remains undefeated. Fear, long ago, learned to knock but never stay. The kid who once stuffed comic books under hymnal pages, now thumbs through tomorrow's storyboard, steady in the knowledge that reinvention isn't a detour, it's the road itself, unrolling as long as breath lasts. And so, our Ozark kid, once wrapped in a chicken suit, later sealed in a spacesuit, keeps moving, pruning vines at dawn, shaping clay by noon, firing up cameras after sunset, always trusting curiosity over comfort. His story isn't a straight climb but a looping track that trades red carpets for forklift pallets whenever the heart says try something harder. If the journey teaches anything, it's that reinvention isn't the exception, it's the rule. If Brad's restless path lit a spark in you, hit like to let the algorithm know these deeper dives matter, tap the bell so you're first in line when the next chapter drops. And tell us below which Brad era speaks to you most. Cowboy hat, vampire velvet, Tyler's soap, or Cliff's rooftop grin. Until our next biography, stay curious, stay moving, and never be afraid to rewrite your script.